So today we have very good fortune of having His Grace Advaita Chandra Prabhuji, and he will be enlightening us on the glories of Vasudeva Vipra. So Prabhuji, please take over the call. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in this discussion with continuation of discussions on the glories of our previous acharyas, we will today talk about Vasudeva Vipra, the Brahmana named Vasudeva, who met Lord Chaitanya during his South India travels, and he's not so much considered as one of the previous acharyas in terms of the six Goswamis and in terms of the other devotees who stayed and got Shiksha from Lord Chaitanya, but he is very much has taught us by his example of humility. And so we'll try to learn from Vasudeva Vipra, the Vipra means Brahmana, how to please Lord Chaitanya by one's humble disposition. Srila Prabhupada would always say that the purpose of our devotional service is to please the previous acharyas, including our Guru Vargas, Srila Prabhupada, and all the previous acharyas. And so we must try to understand who they were so we can follow them, try to imbibe their qualities, and meditate on their qualities. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had just started on this pilgrimage to the South India from Nilachal, from Jagannath Puri, and on the way he came to a very holy place, which was called Kurmakshetra or Kurmasthana. He actually spent a whole day there. He was singing and dancing in ecstasy, and all the population, they joined him in singing the Lord's name. Next morning, he left this place called Kurmakshetra. This Kurmakshetra is very, very famous for a particular pastime of Ramanujacharya. After Kurmakshetra, Lord Chaitanya was leaving towards Simhachalam. In fact, we had a South India Yatra, and whenever, if we try to follow the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya, we'll first go to Simhachalam. We camp in Simhachalam, but the yatra actually starts from Kurmakshetra, which is about an hour and a half drive from Simhachalam. Simhachalam is the place where there is the beautiful deity of Lord Varaha Narsingha, who is half Varaha, half Narsingha with Bhumi Devi on his lap. And the peculiarity of this particular deity is that it is covered under Chandan for 364 days out of 365 days of a year. Only one day the deity, the Chandan is taken out and you can have a full darshan of the deity, and that is on the day of Akshaya Tritiya. On Akshaya Tritiya day, the Chandan is removed because the deity is considered so ugra, so ferocious, that the deity has to be kept cool and has to be calmed down by the Chandan, which is applied all over the body. So this is the place of Simhachalam. This is where this is where Lord Chaitanya had spoken the verse, Ugram Viram Mahavishnum Jwalantam Sarvato Mukham Narsingham Bhishanam Bhadram Mrityur Mrityur Namamyaham Jai Narsingha Shri Narsingha Jai Jai Narsingha Praladesha Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Bhringa. In fact, this verse is still there at the entrance of the temple, indicating that Lord Chaitanya had come and glorified Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nrsingadev, in this way. But before he reached Simhachalam, Lord Chaitanya started his South India Yatra in this place, small place called Kurmakshetra, where there is a temple of Kurmadev, in the form of a tortoise, the Lord in the form of a tortoise. And this deity was established by Sri Ramanujacharya. There's a wonderful, beautiful pastime of how Lord Sri Ramanujacharya came here. Actually, Ramanujacharya, one time he went to Sri Jagannath Puri. He had this desire to see the beautiful forms of Lord Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra, since they are the forms who are in ecstasy, listening to their own pastimes with the devotees. And they are very, very merciful. So he went there to Jagannath Puri, and it is the Pandas there are very traditional from a very long time. Some are descendants of the Shabaras, some are descendants of the Brahmanas, of so many different sects are there who are actually serving the deities. Every day, daily, they have different, each family has the turn to worship Sri Jagannath in the temple once every month. And in this way, the deity worship goes on, and they take it very, very seriously, this worship of Lord Jagannath. However, there is no time for Mangal Arti in Jagannath Puri. There is no time that the Lord wakes up. There is no specific time for the general artis. We know the artis in general would be at this time, but it's not like clockwork. And there's no specific time when the Lord would take rest. Sometimes he takes rest very early. Sometimes he takes rest really late. Sometimes he takes rest early and wakes up late. Sometimes he takes rest late but wakes up early. And so there is no specific time. And when Ramanujacharya, when he saw this, he had some mixed feelings. He was amazed at this. At the same time, he was annoyed. What is this? This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And according to the rules of deity worship, which he had established all over South India, especially in Sri Rangam, the deity has to be treated like king and queen. Here they are treating the deity like a child. What is this? And he started criticizing the Pandas. And he started telling them, this is not the standard for deity worship. You must wake up the deity at a proper time. We must go around our schedule based on the deity's needs, not the other way around. The only thing that you guys are doing right is the prasadam, Mahaprasad. That's incomparable anywhere in the world. But your deity worship standards are pathetic. What's going on here? And since he was a big acharya, the Pandas were kind of started thinking, what are we doing? Then in the night, Sri Ramanujacharya took rest, and in his dream, Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra, they arrived. They came in the dream, and Baladev was so angry. Subhadra was so angry. How dare you teach to our great devotees, the Pandas? We are completely satisfied with how they are worshipping us. You don't need to tell them how to worship us. Their love from generations and generations is the thing that we are craving for. And all these devotees, we are completely satisfied. What is your problem? You want to establish deity worship? You go back to South India. You don't need to be here. And in this way, Baladev, in the dream of Ramanujacharya, kicked Sri Ramanujacharya with his lotus feet. And Ramanujacharya felt that he is flying into the air. And he dropped at a particular place. And suddenly in his dream he woke up with the thud. And when he woke up, he looked around himself. He could not identify where he is. And then he asked around. He's like, which is this place? He saw there's a beautiful deity next door. And that deity was of Kurmadev. In fact, Jagannath had told that here you will find a deity of Kurmadev inside the ground. Take out this deity and establish proper deity worship standards in this place, which will be known as Kurma Kshetra. Now some may say, oh, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra were angry at Ramanujacharya, so this is not such a good thing. Actually, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to come personally and instruct us or even chastise us is a sign of love. Ramanujacharya didn't see it. He didn't feel offended that, I was only trying to help Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. Why are they behaving like this? They must not be the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they did not heed to my desires. No. Ramanujacharya felt this is the most merciful Lord Baladev, Jagannath and Subhadra. Baladev kicked me with his own lotus feet. Who gets that fortune? He touched me. And he was, out of humility, he followed the instruction of the Lord to the T. He established a temple of Kurmadev because Jagannath Baladev Subhadra has told me to. Orissa and this Kurmakshetra are not very far, actually. Kurmakshetra is almost at the border. And he established very nice deity worship standards. That is the reason to reciprocate with the humility of Ramanujacharya, to reciprocate with the dedication of Ramanujacharya. Lord Chaitanya, who is Jagannath himself, he traveled from Jagannath Puri and started his South India Yatra, honoring the temple that was established by Sri Ramanujacharya in Kurmakshetra. He stayed there for one full day. Next morning, he left that place. He proceeded. He was walking. It wasn't a drive. It's a 1.5 hour drive, but it takes hours and hours if we want to walk. Immediately after his departure, a Brahmin came to see the Lord on the way when he was walking from Kurmakshetra to Simhachalam. This Brahmin, his name was Vasudeva Vipra. He was a very devout man, but he was afflicted with leprosy. He was completely oblivious to his condition because he was so absorbed in his devotion to the Lord, and his faith was so strong that he completely forgot about his sores and about his infection, where each of his sores were infested with worms. And because he had leprosy, no one would want to come near him. He was lonely. The only companions that he had were the worms. His foul odor from his body kept people away from him. In fact, he was so humble that if one of the worms would fall off his body, he would carefully pick it up and place it back on his body, thinking that my body is what is meant for you to eat. If you fall, what will you eat? Out of compassion, he would put them back. This was the humility, compassion, and love of Vasudeva Vipra. He is so patient. One time I was, one of my friends was also there. He told me that he was going in a traffic and the car ahead of him was moving like a tortoise. And he was not giving him any way in spite of his continuous honking, and he was like on the brink of losing his cool. He was, what is this going on? Why is this guy going so slow and creating a traffic? If you try to analyze traffic, it's mostly after a point you feel why the traffic was there. Everything is going so smoothly. Maybe because of one car which is going really, really slow, it creates a whole traffic backed up. And so he was like on the brink of losing his cool. And he was honking, but this car was just moving so slow. And then he said that he noticed a small sticker on the back of the car, which said, physically challenged, please be patient. And he was struck with his attitude completely changed. He immediately calmed down. He also slowed down along with calming down. In fact, he said, I got a little protective of the car and the driver. I reached my work a few minutes late, he said, but it was okay. And then he was saying, and as he was saying this incident, I kind of realized would he have been patient if there was no sticker? What if I was in that situation? If there was no sticker, then we were honking. And when he came to know the condition, then he became patient. Similarly, in our daily lives, we meet so many people. And we become angry at them because either they are not efficient, they don't respond to us the way we expect them to, or they sometimes annoy us with their behavior. What if each of us had a label, had a sticker, just like the car had the sticker? What if someone had a sticker saying, I lost my job, I'm fighting cancer, going through a bad divorce, suffering emotional abuse, lost a loved one, feeling worthless, financially devastated? What if everyone had these labels like this with what they were going through? Will we be more patient with them then? Do we need these labels to be patient? Look at Sudama, look at this Vasudeva Vipra. He was patient even with the worms. That is the sign of a devotee. Trinadapi sunichena, tarorapi sahishnuna, to be more tolerant than a tree. And that strength of tolerance, that strength to be patient, doesn't come automatically. In fact, some people say, oh, if you become a devotee, will you stop suffering? You mean a devotee never suffers? You mean a devotee never gets old, doesn't get diseases? Well, a devotee does get old. He does get diseases. He does die. But he doesn't suffer in the same way. He may get pain, but he may not suffer. There's a difference between pain and suffering. A devotee feels the same pain, but he doesn't suffer as a result of that pain because a devotee is always absorbed in remembering Krishna. Because of his absorption, he is very, very tolerant of these things. Because he has a better thing going on within him. Just like Vasudeva Vipra, he was always with gratefulness remembering the pastimes of the Lord. Because of that ecstasy, he was of absorption in that remembrance. His absorption in Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, he was able to tolerate this. He was able to be Trinadapi Sunichena, Tarorapi Sahishnuna, Amanina Manadena, Kirtaniya Sadahari. Give all respect to others, expect none in return. This requires a lot of spiritual strength. Where do we get that spiritual strength from? From our absorption within our minds in hearing and chanting the pastimes of the Lord. And how will that happen? That happens when we do our sadhana very, very nicely. As all of you come together and chant, all of us chant in the mornings in this Japa conference call or in the temples. And we surcharge our consciousness. When we are chanting, Krishna comes. And he asks us, what do you want? What will we say? What do I want? whatever is the answer is what is the mood in which we should chant. The mood of japa is the answer to that question. When we are chanting, we reveal our innermost desires, our fears and our frustrations to Krishna. Imagine if throughout the japa, we were intensely praying for pure devotional service. Then throughout the whole day, our entire being will resonate with this pure frequency. And this will in turn carry and protect us from Maya's obstacles. This surcharging of our minds with the intention for pure devotional service will give us that spiritual strength to be absorbed in hearing and chanting. If we read Srila Prabhupada's books every day without fail, try to develop taste. How much ever time we get, it all starts from reading Prabhupada's books. It all starts from hearing. If our hearing is strong, our chanting will be strong. If our chanting is strong, our hearing we'll get a taste for hearing from Srila Prabhupada, from the devotees. This spiritual strength of tolerating comes because of our relationship with our Guru, relationship with Prabhupada. We can get in a habit that when we wake up in the morning, when we come back in the evening or during the day, that we go in front of the photograph of our spiritual master, of Srila Prabhupada, and we talk to them. We let them know what is happening in our life. What are we doing? What are we not doing? What are we supposed to know? What we know we are supposed to be doing, but we are not doing. What our weaknesses are. Just open up to the photograph and then thank them for giving us some insight. When we get in habit of doing that, then we get absorbed in hearing and chanting and remembering the Lord and His devotees and the previous acharyas in a mood of taking shelter of them. What does it mean to take shelter? To take shelter means first step is to open up to them. Tell them what's going on with us, openly. They already know what's going on, but the act of us opening up and actually revealing ourselves pleases them. That look, this devotee has come to me. I already know what is going on with him, but he's taken that step. He's asking for it. Then they come forward to help. In Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna, for the first 1.5 chapter of the Gita, he did not speak any instructions. He spoke some conversation he had, but he never spoke any instruction. The instruction he started speaking only when Arjuna spoke that famous verse. Shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. Please accept me as your disciple. I am a surrendered soul to you. That's when Krishna started his first instruction. Ashocyanan vashochastvam pragyavadamscha bhashase. And that was a chastisement. You think yourself to be pragyavadams, you think yourself to be very intelligent, but you are lamenting for things that are not meant to be lamented. So unless we approach Krishna to take shelter, unless we approach Guru in the mood of taking shelter, Krishna will not help us. He knows. Krishna knew what is going on in Arjuna's mind. But Krishna did not come forward to give his instructions until Arjuna surrendered. Arjuna said, I want to take shelter of you. And when we share our inner feelings and deepest fears and desires, let it be material desires. We just tell Krishna, Krishna, look, this is the condition of my heart. I'm having so many material desires. I know these are not good for me. Please help me. Tell me what to do. The things that we do, that we constantly think that Guru is, what will I do the same thing if my Guru Maharaj is still here, is right here in front of me. If we lead our life like that and take shelter like that, then we will be able to be absorbed in taking shelter of hearing and chanting. This absorption is very, very important in Krishna consciousness. This is what gives us the strength to tolerate. Otherwise, it is just like a regular person. We'll have the pain of birth, old age, disease, death, adhyatmika, adhibhautika, adhidaivika miseries, but we won't be able to tolerate them until we internalize and absorb ourselves. This absorption is like an anesthesia. When we go through an operation, the doctors, they cut our body. But do we feel the pain? No, because there is anesthesia. So Krishna consciousness' absorption is like a conscious anesthesia. In anesthesia, we go unconscious. But here, this is an anesthesia which is where we are conscious. It makes us able to tolerate all kinds of suffering because we are absorbed in taking shelter of Krishna. It's a very, very valuable thing. If someone has understood how to be absorbed in taking shelter of Krishna internally, then we should know that person has really received mercy. That is real mercy. And Vasudeva Vipra had received this mercy. He was in pain, and externally people would think he's suffering, but internally he was not. He was above all these things. When we are living in that other world within ourselves, when we are living in the spiritual world within ourselves, we are many times able to ignore all the superficiality. If someone says something bad to us, it doesn't matter so much. If someone criticizes us, we are willing to take it. We don't retaliate, because it's like it doesn't even matter so much. Yes, I have this problem, and I'm glad that you pointed out this problem in me, this fault in me, because now I can open up to the Lord and ask for help, ask for shelter. One night, Vasudeva Vipra heard that the Lord himself had come in the disguise of a sannyasi. And then the Lord is singing the Lord's name, Krishna's holy name, and roaming from place to place. He had this deep inner desire. He was desperate to have a glimpse of the Lord singing his own holy names. And he understood that Lord Chaitanya is coming from Kurmakshetra to Simhachalam. He started walking towards Kurmakshetra. He was very feeble and ill. He was walking very slowly. Sometimes he walked, sometimes he sat with all these external organisms of worms around him. He was practically crawling towards his destination, but he had the determination, I have to meet the Lord, I have to see the Lord. By the time he arrived, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already left that place. Seeing him gone, Vasudeva, he wept, "Oh my Lord, I could not get your darshan." He was so much in despair that in that agony, he fainted. At that very moment, somewhere on the road, Mahaprabhu stopped in his tracks, as if he was carefully hearing something. He heard the cry and the despair, the plea of Vasudeva Vipra. Even though they were miles apart, Mahaprabhu said, I am coming. He turned around and started back towards Kurmakshetra. That is the power of the love of his devotee who wants to take shelter of him. Mahaprabhu was already on his way away from Kurmakshetra towards Simhachalam. He stopped, he turned back, and he came back to Kurmakshetra. And this time, Mahaprabhu was not, he was chanting and dancing, but he was not going slow. Mahaprabhu came fast back to Kurmakshetra, fast as lightning. And he reached the place where Vasudeva was lying on the ground, sobbing in disappointment. Mahaprabhu came near him. There was bad odor coming off his body. There was pus oozing from his sores. There were worms all over his body. But Lord Chaitanya came. He lifted him up with both his arms and locked Vasudeva in a tight embrace. Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki Jai. As soon as Lord Chaitanya embraced Vasudeva, his leprosy immediately was cured. Not just the leprosy of the body, but all the leprosy of the mind. He was released from all bondage. And Vasudeva found his body was completely transformed with a golden color, no trace of his disease, the color of the soul, lustrous. Vasudeva, he fell at the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu. He wept, "Oh Lord, what have you done? No one dares to come close to me. You have held me close to your heart. Your heart is the residence of Lakshmi Devi." Because Vasudeva was in the mood of serving Lakshmi Narayan. Your heart is the residence of Lakshmi Devi. Why did you embrace me like this? You must be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Only Supreme God can do this. Because both those who are deserving, those who are undeserving, both are dear to you. But my Lord, what have you done to me? Is this your mercy? I don't know if this is your mercy. I knew that my leprosy was your mercy. I was convinced of the fact. But now that you've cured me, I'm in anxiety. As long as I was untouchable, people would stay away from me. My mind was free of pride. I was always reminded of my fallen position, which is why I was able to absorb myself in you. I had that motivation because I have no other shelter. The only other shelter I have, if I have to be happy, is to absorb and take shelter of you in hearing and chanting about you. If a moment I would not be in your absorption, I would be reminded of my miseries. And then I would immediately go back and take shelter. But now I'll become proud of this beautiful body that you've given me. I'm afraid I will not remain humble anymore. Once this pride enters my mind, I will lose you, my Lord. I'd rather have you and not this beautiful body. Very similar to the prayer of Kunti Devi, where Kunti Devi said, "Oh my Lord, we see that every time we are in misery, as the Pandavas, you come and give your association to us. You come and help us go through these miseries. Guide us what to do." But now, when we are when everything is hunky-dory, you don't come and visit us anymore. I'd rather that you be with us and let us be in misery. Please give me more and more misery is what Kunti Devi prayed, so that we can have your association. And in the same mood, Vasudeva Vipra prayed. Hearing these words, Mahaprabhu's heart melted and tears were streaming down his eyes. He said, Vasudev, today you have defeated me. A devotee like you will never be overtaken by arrogance. Now that you have got your body back, your duty now is to serve the people of Utkal with devotion. Bring them close to Krishna, just like your heart is close to Krishna. Your life should be a sacrifice of seva. Seva yajna is what you should perform. And Vasudeva Vipra, he became a physician by profession. And as directed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he spent the rest of his life serving the needy and bringing them closer to God. In that mood of compassion, people would be touched by him, and he would relate his story, and they would get attached to the glory of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is the power of humility. It is only humility that attracts the heart of the Lord. If we are arrogant about anything, then even if we are arrogant of our devotion, even if we feel I'm better than others because I'm a devotee, I'm better, look, I'm following the 4 regulative principles, I'm better than the alcoholic on the street, that is also arrogance, and that's also pride. Ahankara. But some may ask, but it's a fact. I am better than the alcoholic on the street. Look at him. I'm following the 4 regular principles. That person is not. It makes me better, a better person. Am I not better than him? No. We are not better than the alcoholic on the street. We are more fortunate. We may be more fortunate than that person, but we are not better than them. So we should understand, we should always be humble. This humility and this attitude of absorption in taking shelter attracts the heart of the Lord, attracts the heart of the previous acharyas. Humility does not mean to think less of oneself. It means to think less about oneself. Which means humility does not mean that we are thinking ourselves to be, we have an inferiority complex, that we are inferior. If I think myself to be inferior, then that is deflated ego. If I think myself to be superior, that's inflated ego. Our ego is being inflated. If I think that I'm worse than someone, that's deflated ego. It's still ego. It's still ahankara. Humility means to not think about oneself at all. To think about what will please Krishna, what will please the devotees. That is humility. And if pleasing Krishna means to command over others, that commanding is humility. If pleasing Krishna means to live under a tree, then that is humility. When Arjuna was fighting and killing people in the battlefield, he was humble. generally killing people is not attached to being humble. But Arjuna was the most humble person because he was doing it for Krishna's satisfaction, because he was not thinking about himself, he was thinking about Krishna. If it were left to him, he did not want to fight. But because Krishna wanted to, his consciousness was always absorbed in Krishna, that fight was humble fight from Arjuna's perspective. So this is the understanding that we can get from Vasudeva. There was also a wonderful pastime of Raghunath, who was a devotee of Lord Jagannath. He also underwent a similar situation, similar kind of disease. And he actually had constipation and things like that. And he was actually a devotee of Lord Ramachandra, this Raghunath. And he came to Jagannath Puri, and I'll just end with this wonderful pastime of this Raghunath. He came to Jagannath Puri, and when he would see Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra, he would actually see Ram, Sita, Lakshman in that form, and Sudarshan as Hanuman. And he would worship Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra in that form. And so one day he took a bark of a tree, and he made garlands out of the bark of the tree and gave it to the Pandas to offer it to Lord Jagannath, because Lord Ramachandra had worn the bark of the tree and walked all around in his for 14 years. But it is considered inauspicious to offer bark of a tree, of a banana tree like that, to Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra. So the Pandas, they said, what kind of a garland is that? And they just rejected it. And this Raghunath was very much heartbroken. What is this? My Lord would not accept this. And he went back dejected. That next day was actually a flower festival. And the Pandas were supposed to whole night decorate the Lord with flowers. And next day, the flowers would come up. So they were making the flower dress and trying to decorate Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra with flowers, but Jagannath would not get dressed. The flowers wouldn't just remain. They would put some flowers, the flowers would fall down. They would again put it back again, it would again fall down, again and again and again. There was not even, he would not allow even one flower to stay on his body. And the Pandas, they were surprised. What's going on today? This is a miracle. Maybe we did some offense. So all of the Pandas got together. They said, we will now sleep in the Garbha Mandap and wait for Jagannath to come in one of our dreams and reveal to us the reason for this happening. And they slept right there in the temple, and in the dream of one of the head priest, Jagannath came and he said, you have offended my devotee, Raghunath. He came with so much love to give me this garland that he made, and you rejected it. If you want me to be dressed in any flower, first I want to be dressed in the garland of Raghunath. Go to the house of Raghunath and get the garland from him. And so the Pandas woke up. He told the rest of the Pandas, they all went to the house of Raghunath, to his hut, and he said, please give us that garland. Lord Jagannath wants this garland. And Raghunath was so depressed. He was dejected when he heard about Lord Jagannath's plea. My Lord himself, he asked for it, and so humbly he gave that garland and put it on Lord Jagannath. And after that, Jagannath was very happy to get the flowers. That same Raghunath, after a few days, he fell ill. And his illness was such that he was constantly being constipated, and he would get unconscious, and then suddenly he would come back to consciousness. Then again he would get constipated, he would get unconscious. And there was the odor of stool and urine was coming from his house. So no one would actually enter his house. And Raghunath was suffering alone. Was in pain alone. He was not suffering because internally he was always remembering his worshipable Lord Ramachandra. a little boy entered his hut, and this little boy looked around. He cleaned up everything. He cleaned Raghunath's body, and when Raghunath came back to consciousness, he smelt a very nice odor around his house. He said, "What just happened?" And then after some time, he got unconscious again. The next day again, this boy came. He started cleaning him up. And again the same thing. This time, he felt, I have to see who this boy is. Next day when the boy came, Raghunath asked him, "Who are you? Why are you doing this? Are you the one who's cleaning me up and putting all this nice odor around the smell around the house?" He said, "Yes." And then he revealed, this little boy, that he is Lord Jagannath himself, who has come personally to serve his devotee. And when Raghunath realized this is Lord Jagannath, he couldn't even pay obeisances because of his condition, but in his mind he paid Sashtang Dandavat. "Oh my Lord, thank you. Why are you doing this? Please don't do this. I'm grateful to you, but it is very embarrassing. I'm in this situation. Why are you doing this?" And Lord Jagannath said, "My devotees like to serve me. I like to serve my devotees even more." And so this Raghunath, he said, "My Lord, I'm confused. If you really want to serve me, then why don't you just cure me of this illness? Why are you cleaning my stool and urine and all these things? Just cure me and everything will go away, and you don't have to do all this thing, because it's breaking my heart to see you doing this to me." Jagannath said, "Well, I want you to go back home, back to Godhead. I want you to get rid of all your karma. Therefore, I'm not stopping curing this disease. But while you are going through this disease, I will come and help you go through this in the best possible way." This is the mood of the Lord. The devotees go through miseries, but they are able to tolerate because of their absorption, and because they please Krishna. Krishna comes and helps us go through those miseries. He may sometimes decrease the intensity of our karma. He may sometimes increase the intensity of our karma, depending on what is best for our spiritual life. But either way, he comes. He's always with us, and he helps us tolerate these miseries and be grateful, be absorbed in his pastimes. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. If there are any questions or comments, we can take now.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Wonderful class, Prabhuji. Some of the key points I liked us, our hearing, when our hearing is strong, the chanting will also be very strong. So that is a very nice message. And another thing was, you mentioned to us about we should consider we are fortunate than an alcoholic outside. That was also a very powerful message, probably. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much for the wonderful class. Even though I am from Andhra Pradesh, I didn't know about Simhachalam Punyakshetra significance. Thank you so much for letting us know. I'm very much eager to go to Simhachalam next time. Thank you for the wonderful class, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I also have to say how much I appreciated the points you made today. One question is when it came to, I'm sorry, I don't remember the Prabhu's name that you were glorifying today.
Vasudeva Vipra.
Vasudeva Vipra. Okay, yeah. So when he was experiencing loneliness due to the fact that he did not have association because of his, condition, the smell emanating from his body, was he not suffering from that loneliness?
Yeah, there is a difference between pain and suffering. Pain is the physical or mental aspect of it. But the devotee may go through pains, but he does not suffer because he is always absorbed in the pastimes of the Lord, remembering the Lord and hearing and chanting, and so in a sense, his soul is blissful. So, his attitude of this Brahmana is what pleased Lord Chaitanya. His attitude was that he was in pain because of the leprosy. There was a lot of pain in his body, but he was not suffering because he was internally living in the other world, meaning internally. Like one time, I went to one Maharaj in our movement, and I was just telling them some of the things, some of the challenges that are there in the association of devotees, and some devotee says this and some devotee says that, and I wasn't complaining about the devotees, but I wanted to ask him, how should I accept these things? What should be my attitude? And like that. So he gave some guidance on that, but in the end he said, try to live more in the other world. And it was a long discussion, so since he said that in the end, I didn't ask for much clarification. But later I was pondering on this, that from that whole discussion, this was the point that really struck me, that try to live in the other world, which means try to live in the pastimes of Krishna, and try to be more in the spiritual world as much as possible. Then the little things of this material world will not seem to bother, because we make a molehill out of a small thing.
A mountain out of a molehill, yes.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. Because if we focus more on the problems, those problems become really huge and big, even though they are small. But if we focus on Krishna, focus on others, focus on the devotees, then these problems just go away. Of course, another one comes, but it's not just such a big deal. So I guess Vasudeva was not making it such a big deal. He just accepted it. And of course, this whole process of acceptance has to go through, requires a lot of spiritual purification. But still, he came to a point where he accepted it, and he understood the solution for this is absorption in the hearing and chanting the pastimes of the Lord, and then these problems will come and go like bubbles in a water. If we give them too much attention, they'll just consume us completely. So that's the solution that he gave through his life. His life's example is testimony to this fact, the solution.
Yeah, I mean, I've understood that there's a difference between pain and suffering. I think when it came to his Vasudeva's loneliness, I guess I saw that as a little bit different, because for one thing, that loneliness was it not also due to the fact that he was also separated from devotee association, which I think puts it in a, I don't know if that puts it in a different category or not. And also, another reason why I didn't think of the pain versus suffering in this case is because, it just seemed like a suffering of the heart, it's just like, and also, when it comes to what's going on in the mind, it's so much more difficult to detach from the mind than it is from, let's say, the body, because I think we tend to identify so much more strongly with the mind than the body. So, I don't know if you can address those.
No, that's correct. The bodily pain heals up quickly, but the pains of the mind, the scars remain for a long, long time, sometimes throughout the life. So that's there. But I guess we, in this material world, as long as we are there, these scars will happen. There's no way around it. We have to accept that these scars will be there, and these scars are what mature us. As long as we are looking for, desperately seeking for shelter and seeking help and guidance from Krishna, just reach out desperately whenever these mental issues torment us or torment our minds. We have one solution: just run to Krishna. That's why to get into a habit of revealing our mind to the spiritual master, at least as photograph, if he is not personally present, or to Srila Prabhupada, is a good habit, because then we are actually asking for spiritual help, and the help comes in some way or the other. It may not come immediately, but if we keep doing that, then when Krishna is convinced that we are sincerely asking for help, then he sends. That we have seen in so many cases since time immemorial, and even today. So I guess our only thing is we reveal our hearts and minds and the deepest things, like a confession or whatever that happens to the priest. We do that to the photo of the spiritual master, photo of Srila Prabhupada, or to the deities, and ask for help. Mm-hmm. And Krishna will then arrange. Definitely he will arrange. If he doesn't arrange, he comes himself in different ways to help the devotees, in the mind, in the body, but we must have that faith, and he comes only when he's convinced that we are sincerely asking for his help. So that's all we have to really do. Do it in a very sincere way. Because if he thinks that we are just, when a child cries, the mother knows if the child is just throwing tantrums or is he really, really needing her attention. Sometimes the child is, then the mother is like, okay, he's just being cranky. He doesn't really need my attention. And then suddenly the child cries, he's hungry, and the child just screams and cries. And the mother, when she's convinced that this cry is really a cry for shelter, she leaves everything. Whatever important thing she's doing, she leaves it and runs to the child. So Krishna definitely will come, but as long as our plea is sincere from the heart.
So that loneliness that Vasudeva Vipra was experiencing, you would say that was more like on mental level, and so he just tolerated that by his preoccupation with Krishna? Would you say it's on the
that's true.
Mental level, right?
Yes, that is correct. At the same time, when Lord Chaitanya cured him, and gave him the beautiful body back, he was afraid that, why did you do this? It was better earlier because I was able to be absorbed and people would remind me of my fallen state. But now everyone is going to glorify me. And everyone's going to say, wow, you were the one who got the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And we can see that transformation. You are so fortunate, Prabhu. You're so glorious. Come and give classes to us. Tell us about your realization. And now I'll become proud. So he actually was fearful, expressing his anxiety to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, don't worry, don't be fearful, always be in this mood of humility and serve the devotees, serve the humanity. And he became a physician, and he treated people, and he would direct them to Krishna consciousness within his heart. And this way, he continued his absorption. So it wasn't that he was suffering because of that. The pain was there, but he was not suffering even at that time. Otherwise, he would have not expressed that anxiety to Lord Chaitanya.
Yes, and the fear of the pride, because the problem with pride, I know this is an obvious question, but I need to ask anyway. The problem with the problem with pride is that you become more absorbed in your own glorification than in Krishna's.
Exactly. That's correct.
Okay.
Now there are examples of many other great devotees who were very fortunate. They had beauty, knowledge, strength. They were kings, but still they were able to be absorbed. So it's not necessarily a matter of whether you have material opulence or not. It's more about how you are absorbed, as you rightly pointed out. We have the example of Maharaj Pratap Rudra, who was there during Lord Chaitanya's time. He was absorbed in the Lord. We have the example of Maharaj Ambarish in Srimad Bhagavatam. He was a king, but he was always engaged his senses in the service of the Lord. We have the example of Vrishabhanu, who was in Lord Chaitanya's pastime. He came and he was a big king, and but he was still absorbed in the pastimes of the Lord. When Gadadhar Pandit went to see him, Gadadhar Pandit in his mind was criticizing this king, that why he's such a big king and he's sitting on a huge high seat. He's so proud. How can he be a devotee? Because one devotee took Gadadhar Pandit to him, and Gadadhar Pandit criticized in his mind. Just then, this devotee started singing glorification of Krishna. Aho Bakiyam Stanakala Kutam. And when he said this verse of how merciful Krishna is, that he gave the position of a nurse to Putana, who had come to kill him. And hearing this devotee, he fell from his throne. It was a very high, huge throne, but he fell from there in ecstasy of remembering Krishna. Then Gadadhar Pandit understood, he is internally he is absorbed in Krishna's glories and pastimes. Externally he has a very opulent setting, but internally he is absorbed. And then he took initiation from that king, Gadadhar Pandit, the associate of Lord Chaitanya, whose name we chant, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So it doesn't really matter. It's not so much, doesn't mean that we should, if Krishna gives us opulence, we should just reject it because of this thing. It just shows the mood that we should be in, whether in not such a opulent setting or in an opulent setting. the main message is absorption.
Yes, thank you very much, Prabhu. And just to give maybe a material analogy, I mean, you can tell me if this is appropriate. When we have something that we really enjoy doing very much, some activity, I don't know, maybe your hobby is to sew or to cook, whatever the hobby is. If you're very passionate about it and it absorbs your mind, then even if, let's say, your body is experiencing hunger, you might not notice it because you're so absorbed in that activity that you enjoy doing so much. So I was wondering if it kind of works, if that's an appropriate analogy.
Yes,
you become preoccupied by the thing you're attracted to, rather, even though some negative things might be going on in your mind or in your body. You don't notice
that's an appropriate example, except that these hobbies, they start and then they end after some time and we move on to some other thing. But with Krishna's absorption, since it's related to the soul and since it's eternal, we can keep doing that. But yes, that's the closest experience that we have of being absorbed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Really appreciate
it. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for wonderful lecture, and I want to thank Gaurangi Mataji as well for beautiful conversation. So by this conversation, my intake is we will face problem in day-to-day basis, but if we listen Bhagavatam class every day, so it will give us strength to face all these problems and have mind and means like Krishna all the time. Thank you so much.
And you should read Srila Prabhupada's books daily.
Yes.
They are surcharged with that absorption.
Yes, Prabhuji. And Prabhuji, I have one doubt that Vasudeva Vipra and Vasudeva Datta are same.
No, Vasudeva Vipra is from Orissa, but nearby on the border of Orissa and Andhra Pradesh, near Kurmakshetra. But Vasudeva Datta was in Mayapur, was in Navadvip, and he is considered to be an incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj, Vasudeva Datta, who prayed that, just like Prahlad Maharaj prayed, he prayed to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to please give me all the sins of all the living entities so that they can go back home, back to Godhead.
And he did not get any leprosy, right?
No, not Vasudeva Datta. This is Vasudeva Vipra, which is Vasudeva Brahman. But Vasudeva Datta was not like that.
So was he, this Vasudeva Datta, was he an associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or incarnation of some personality or just a devotee?
Yes, he was an incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj.
Vasudeva Vipra?
Yes.
Vasudeva Datta.
He was an associate of Mahaprabhu and he was an associate of Mahaprabhu as well as incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj in Lord Chaitanya's pastime.
But you said he was Vasudeva Datta, right? But I am talking about Prabhuji Vasudeva Vipra.
Oh, Vasudeva Vipra. Vasudeva Vipra, I'm not sure if he was any incarnation. But I'll have to check that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for a wonderful class. You covered so many pastimes. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Advaita Chandra, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.
Very wonderful. Every year almost we come to hear wonderful. Couple of perspectives I wanted to share.
Yes. Your name, Prabhu?
My name is Mukti Swarup Govinda Dasanudar.
Okay.
We all feel very fortunate being blessed with this Krishna consciousness. But a great Vaishnava described that whatever privilege or adhikar which we have, it comes with the sense of responsibility. So what he meant to say that whatever privilege we have, if we use them as our duty, and whatever duties or responsibilities we consider as privilege, in life will become very wonderful. So in that sense, I can feel very fortunate to be coming to this process of pure devotional service. And you brought out one very wonderful thing, that when we see other people suffering and deprived of Krishna consciousness, then our feeling fortunate comes with the responsibility. We cannot just cherish on our own. That fortune is given to us with the understanding that now we have to bring that fortune in the lives of those who are deprived, just as we were deprived once upon a time. Without just feeling that, I am very fortunate, so let me use all my rights and everything. But the real beauty of appreciating that I am very fortunate is how I can help and bring the same fortune possibility in the lives of others. Regarding this Kunti Devi praying for the calamities, Vipada is always physical, but when one becomes overwhelmed, then it becomes miserable condition. So whenever Pandavas, they were very powerful, they could just withhold many of the problems because they were powerful. But when they were always pushed to the brink, and then everything left was Krishna, So they never became overwhelmed by their calamities, and so they never felt miserable because of their dependence all the times on Krishna. So Kunti Devi prayed for the Vipadas, because feeling miserable, they never experienced because of their dependence on Krishna. So this point, sometimes the Vipadas and miseries, they become synonymous, but there is a subtle difference. And, you reminded also one very unique pastime, like Vasudeva Vipra. So this is how the Lord stands out from all the other stalwart devotees. You discussed Acharya, our Srila Prabhupada, and all these wonderful devotees, but only God can do just as Vasudeva Vipra. Only you must be Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nobody else can do, And, so this is how the Lord, although many people still consider him as a great devotee, but how a devotee and the difference between the Supreme Lord is magnified here. Another example, Radha Govind Maharaj also brings out that there was a childhood friend of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Raghunath, and they were studying, and they both wrote on one book on the Vyakaran. So when Raghunath saw the writing of Mahaprabhu, he became very devastated. He said, whatever I have written, it will have no value in front of your writing. So Mahaprabhu said, oh, here goes my writing, my book in the Ganges, which makes my friend so miserable. Miserable means mental anguish, because his anxiety that all my effort is wasted like that. So wonderful, Prabhu. You are very wonderful with a lot of emotion and a lot of putting your system in it. It's very, very gratifying spiritually. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Danat Pranam. Glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. It's a very nice class. Prabhuji, I have one question in regarding Gaurani Mataji's question. All the questions were very inspiring and very useful also, Mataji were asking. While the observation comes when we are practicing, how we can balance, like when try to remember Krishna's pastime. It's not we are the celebrated soul, we will be in that like that we deal with Krishna, but when we remember how we balance, like we have position, like how we balance with the philosophical means the philosophy with this pastime, Prabhu. Means how we can balance our position and that pastime. Maybe we may take some time ordinary and we may things very easily. All the pastime means become like a sahajayas, like that. How we can balance this pastime and how we can observe in philosophical way. And do you understand, Prabhu?
Your voice was getting a little bit cut or something like that. Can you? What I understood is your question was, how can we be balanced in remembering Krishna's pastimes? Is that
Yes.
what your question is?
Yeah, it means how we can get more observation while we are in everyday life. Means same time we should not take as ordinary this pastime. Means when we start thinking Krishna's pastime, maybe I'm that level, I'm like Yashoda Mai, and I'm also thinking do like that. We should not take in that sahajas bhav. How we take this pastime is means balance as our position and that pastime while we are remembering.
Well, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that he suggested that we should remember Krishna. In fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, they were Dabir Khas and Sakara Malik. He said, you should perform your duty so nicely, even Raghunath Das Goswami. You should perform your duty very, very nicely. But internally, you should remember Krishna just like a wife remembers her paramour. This is the example Lord Chaitanya gave. If a wife has an affair with another man, then the wife does her duty so nicely so that she is not suspected, but internally she's thinking of the paramour. So, in the same way, our paramour is Krishna. We are in this material world. We are doing all the duties of this world, but we are having a love affair with Krishna, which others will not understand in this material world, and we have to make sure that no one suspects us. So in that mood, we do our duties of this material world very, very nicely. We have to pay our bills, we have to pay our taxes, we perform our work in our office or our duties as mothers or as housewives, homemakers, or in our work, whatever our situation is in the material world, we do that. But internally, we know that we are doing this for Krishna's pleasure. When we go for grocery, a non-devotee comes and thinks, okay, what do I want to eat today? What should I buy? When a devotee comes to the same grocery shop, he thinks, okay, what does Krishna want to eat today? What should I buy? So externally they're doing the same activity, but internally one is thinking for one's own pleasure, the other one is thinking of Krishna's pleasure. And if we do that, then we will be able to form a proper balance. At the same time, it's not easy to do this activity. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada has said we must do our sadhana very nicely. We must wake up, perform, complete our rounds, read Srila Prabhupada's books, and until we have done these two, we should not step out. We should not start our day. Because these two things, chanting and reading Prabhupada's books, is what gives us that spiritual armor with which we can go out, and then Maya will attack in so many different ways, try to convince us we are the enjoyer, try to allure us and so many things, and then by the end of the day, our armor is all scarred and battered with the onslaughts of Maya, and then next day morning, we again get up and, read Prabhupada's books, and chant our rounds. This again surcharges us. If we keep doing that as a practice, then slowly, we will be allowed to remember Krishna throughout the day. But at least we must do this intensely in the morning. Then slowly we'll see that naturally we are able to remember Krishna, we are able to take shelter of Krishna in good times and bad times. But the key to that is our sadhana.
Yes, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Prabhu, one more point came to my memory. Even when we feel fortunate, then the compassion has to come, because only through compassion the humility will be sustained. Because I can see that however fortunate I am, I have remained still underachieved, So much, in spite of so much fortune and facility given to me, if I think how much I have done, I could have done much, much better. So there is no sense of arrogance then we come. But on the other hand, seeing others, in spite of seeing their less fortunate position, if they are still doing some devotional service, they are doing much more than what we would have done in their position. So considering their situation, the compassion has to come naturally, because I have myself remained underachiever. But in their condition, if I was, I may not have been able to perform even that much. We can see some spark of devotion and good thing in others, seeing their unfortunate or less fortunate situation. Not to look down upon, but to appreciate in spite of that whatever they can do. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. All right. If there are any questions or comments, we can take now. Otherwise, we can end.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for your wonderful time and association. So, if nobody has any questions or comments, I send the call.
Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hare Krishna.